We are on the cusp of a major social change. Do you feel it? Even if you don't, make no mistake, change is coming, and it is going to be unforgettable. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Hart, and here on Prime Spark, where we work with and on behalf of women over 55, I want to help you find that spark that will ignite your way forward, reflect your gifts to the world, and illuminate your path through this next stage of life. Through these podcast conversations, I hope to inspire you to see how you can make a significant contribution to some of the gnarly problems that are facing us right now. Join me, and together let's discover our Prime Spark. Hi, and welcome to Prime Spark. I'm Sarah Hart, and I'm so happy you're here with us. Prime Spark is designed for women over 55 or close, with a goal to help us all live our happiest, most fulfilling and productive lives, now and in the future. The mission of Prime Spark is to change the way our society sees and treats older women. That's a big mission, which only means we all need to be involved and we need to get going now. And today I have the pleasure of talking with Caroline Paul, a woman whom I greatly admire. Caroline Paul is the author of Tough Broad, From Boogie Boarding to Wing Walking, How Outdoor Adventure Improves Our Lives as We Age. The New York Times bestseller, The Gutsy Girl, Escapades for Your Life of Epic Adventure. And Lost Cat, a true story of love, desperation, and GPS technology, which has been translated into 15 languages. She is also the author of the memoir, Fighting Fire, the middle grade book, You Are Mighty, A Guide to Changing the World, and the novel, East Wind, Rain. Her TED Talk, To Raise Brave Girls, Encourage Adventure, has been viewed over 2 million times. A longtime member of the Writers Grotto, she lives in San Francisco. Welcome, Caroline. I'm so happy you're here today.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much.
So in getting started, let me just ask you, do you experience getting older? And if you do, what is that experience? And if you don't, why is it that you think that you don't?
No, I definitely experience getting older. I'm sort of baffled by people who say that age doesn't matter. That's fine for them, but for me, that's age so matters. I'm really glad to be at this intersection in my life because it's the accumulation of my life experience, my current health, my future hopes. I mean, being exactly where I am, which is age 61, I'm really proud of and psyched to be. And I experience aging as a time of opportunity and growth and peace of mind.
You know, I speak to so many women. Most of the women I speak to talk about how as they get into their late 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, if they can maintain fairly good health, their life sort of gets better. They feel more of who they are, they're excited. And I don't know how long it's going to take the media and society to catch up with how we really are now. Because just what you said is very true for a lot of women. It's not true for a lot of women, but it is. So for those who don't know, Caroline, what is Tough Broad about and who is it for?
Well, Tough Broad is about my own quest to figure out my own fulfilling aging journey. So in some ways it's just for me, but I am actually writing it also for my peers. I've published 7 books, and this is the first one where I really went into it not knowing the answers. I'm actually asking questions. I was 55 and I was surfing, and I looked around and I realized there were no women my age out in the surf. And it was pretty burly winter surf, not a good surfer. I'm a really good paddler. But there were a lot of men my age out there and older. So And I knew there were a lot of women who were better than me at surfing, so I couldn't figure out why they weren't there. And the same thing kept happening, on my electric skateboard. I also fly experimental planes, and there were men my age and many older, but rarely women. And I started to wonder about my own future aging journey. So I really pitched this book to figure it out myself. I had a feeling that outdoor adventure, which is something I've always had in my life, was was key to staying happy and healthy as I aged. But it sure didn't look like it when I looked around, because there just weren't any of my peers out there. So I decided to write a book that looked into the science and psychology of getting outside. And I wanted to embed that in the experiences of real women who were older than me and ask them their insights for all of us.
For anybody who hasn't read this book, if you get a chance, please get it. It is it'll change your life, even if you don't want to do boogie boarding and wing walking.
True. This is a book for everybody. I mean, I really when I say adventure, understand that you don't have to be a daredevil. This is about getting outside and finding out that the boundaries you thought existed for what you could and could not do as you aged will change dramatically. You'll blow them out, and you'll also sort of upend other people's expectations of you as well. That was the powerful thing about getting outside and picking an activity, no matter what it was. And yes, I did accompany a base jumper, and I went scuba diving with a woman who was 80, but I also went bird watching, and I also went walking in a park. So the definition of adventure is quite broad.
I was having dinner with a group of older women, and I was telling them about your book because I just can't stop talking about your book. They were, oh no, I couldn't, no. And I said, no, you guys, you don't have to do this really dangerous stuff. Caroline does a lot of really dangerous stuff, but you don't have to do stuff that's terrifying. Just step out and what if y'all decided to do one thing next week that you haven't done for a while outside, that for you would be an adventure? And when we talked about it like that, it became very doable for them. It was fun. It was fun to watch the transformation. You must see that.
Well, over and over again, I say, do your adventure. My adventure, I've been an outdoor adventurer in the big sort of capital A sense of the word for a very long time. I was a whitewater rafter. I was a firefighter here in San Francisco. I do fly planes. I have biked all over the world, and sea kayak, etc. But that's my adventure. I think over and over again in the book, I emphasize that this is your adventure. But what I really want is people to get outside and pick an activity. Because, when I started this book, I knew very little about the benefits of getting outside and having an adventure, however you define it. But the science is overwhelming on this. And it begins with understanding just how transformative it can be to upend, again, your own expectations of yourself. And that the best playground for that is the outdoors. You can do that at the piano. You can do that learning a new language. But if you think of the things we need as we age, which basically fall into sort of 5 broad categories, and I'm sure you've covered before, but they are, we need our health, we need novelty, we need purpose, we need community. And finally, we need one thing that I had never heard of before, but I came upon as I began my research, and that is a positive attitude about our own aging.
Yes.
So this was one of the most gobsmacking things that happened to me. When I read that, well, I certainly understood on a personal level just how toxic the messaging is about aging for women. We're told that we're frail, that we're on a cognitive decline, and that we're boring. I mean, all my friends starting at around 40 started talking about how invisible they were. I mean, our currency is changing, but that can be incredibly exciting and empowering. Instead, we are dropped into what we feel is a very gray area, and we're sort of neutralized. And sort of a lot of women have told me they don't feel part of society. Then I came upon research that talks about how the way we look at our own aging affects how well we age. That means if we have a negative view of aging, we are much more likely to have a heart attack earlier, cognitive decline earlier, and the opposite is true. If we have a positive view of our own aging, we live healthier lives, happier lives, and we live 7.5 years longer, which is kind of a startling statistic. But then, of course, that's great to know. We need a positive attitude. But in the face of such terrorizing messaging about our own aging, how do we get that positive attitude? It's very, very difficult. You just can't, do a couple affirmative chants in the morning. It just isn't going to penetrate because there's such an onslaught that we, subconsciously are believing day to day about how irrelevant we've become, and more so as we age. So what I started to realize is that getting outside is the single best antidote to this negative messaging. It is the single best way to embody a positive attitude about your own aging. And the reason I say that is because when you go outside, everything that you need when you go outside, which is often a little bit of hardiness, not a lot, some joy, maybe you're out there with friends, and maybe you're doing something super fun. All that is a direct rebuke to everything we're told about who we are as we age. So for instance, time and again, I saw this. Women who had picked up boogie boarding, as you mentioned, told me that when they went in the cold Pacific Ocean, and then they made decisions about what waves to take, and then they had incredible fun for an hour, and they were focused, and they felt purposeful helping other people have fun, that surprised them about their own aging process. They didn't think that was something, all those attributes were available to them. And I saw this over and over again when women picked up bird watching, when they picked up sea kayaking, when they learned how to swim, that over and over again, when you take an outdoor activity, it upends not only society's expectations, but your own of what you can and cannot do as you age.
And that must filter into other areas of your life. I mean,
Yes.
if I remember I did a really long bike ride several years ago. And when I got home, I felt so energized and charged and felt like I could do anything.
I interviewed Vijaya Srivastava, who's here in Albany, California. She learned to swim at 68. And what the reason I wanted to talk to her is because this is covered the novelty aspect, how we need to keep novelty in our lives. We need to keep learning something new. And she told me, what I began to realize is if I can learn to swim at 68, what else can I do? And she started picking up all these other things. And so I saw that over and over again, too, that women who picked up new outdoor activities started to then tackle other things that they wanted to expand in their lives.
So Caroline, this book, your recent book was just published this year, but you must have been doing the interviewing and the writing several years leading up to 2024. Have you seen any changes in this over the years? And I ask that because I have been working with Prime Spark for only about 4 years. And during that time, it certainly isn't enough, but I have seen a gradual growing of awareness of the impact of the messaging older women get on them. And more women are writing books about midlife and forward. And I see a subtle change. And I'm wondering, you're in a perfect position to know whether or not you've seen any change.
I mean, I think we've known the damaging messaging, but we've believed it so deeply that we don't think of it as messaging. We think of it as just truth. I don't know. I hope so. I definitely have came into this project myself wondering, like, where are all the adventurous women? And then suddenly they started coming out of the woodwork. So I, who have a small posse of very adventurous friends that I've known all my life, and I myself have been in the outdoors all my life, suddenly and was told, hey, we older women want adventure, and we are out here. And both of those things did surprise me. So I guess I myself was hoodwinked by the messaging.
Yeah, that was somebody you interviewed in your book says that older women want adventure. And I wonder, do you think that's true? And if you think that's true, why do you think that?
I definitely think that's true. Well, we've kind of come into our own. First of all, we have been dropped into this gray area where no one has any more expectations of us. And in that is a really powerful opportunity to blossom. And I think also women are unencumbered by a lot of the things they were before. So their children are out of the house. They've most likely ended their careers, jobs. Maybe they possibly, I mean, they definitely have at least reached the nadir of what they want to do. They're often either not partnered or very much partnered. So there's just kind of a settled time of life in its way. But of course, I write about the abrupt changes that we also face as we age. But I think we've come to this, I think women especially, it's hard won getting here because as a woman, we have to do a lot. I'm not trying to downplay what men have to do, but I think we all agree that women take on the caretaking responsibilities, and they're still earning money, and they're still running a household. So by the time you get to this age, you've learned a lot, you know who you are, and now it's kind of me time. And also that is partly psychological, but it's also very physiological. In menopause, all the hormones that very much could dictate a lot of our attitudes towards life have now changed, and they've done science on this. We have extreme caretaking hormones, and now those caretaking hormones, they're not gone, but they're turned more towards ourselves.
I think my experience with talking to women is that they're turned more toward ourselves. Like it's really time for me now. And along with that, and I want to do something that is fulfilling and meaningful to me. And so I think it's a perfect time for many women to step out and contribute into the world in whatever way they want to, because the world desperately needs older women's wisdom right now. I think that many are willing to step out and do that if they have the cheerleading and the support to do it.
There's lots of factors, the financial factors and the health factor. And I talk a lot about adaptability as we age, because I don't have a Pollyanna view of aging, a gilded sense of like how incredibly perfect it is. I realize that we face, health declines possibly, but usually what I am speaking to also is women who are pulling back before those health declines. And actually, when I talk about my own mother, who picked up bicycling at the age of 62 and then was diagnosed with Parkinson's at 80, there was a sense of like, thank God you picked up bicycling at 62, because you got almost 20 years of it before you had to get off your bike, and now you can't anymore. And those memories are precious to her, those adventures she had. And so I see women pulling back well before they should. But even if you do have health limitations, and there are adaptations. So for instance, I interviewed Virginia Rose, who is a bird watcher, and she started a nonprofit called Birdability. She herself is in a wheelchair and has been since she was 14, but she takes people out with physical disabilities into the outdoors to birdwatch because she believes it can be life-changing, and that most of us can do it. Almost all of us can do it. And I found that inspiring to see that someone like Virginia understood that even if you were in a wheelchair, you could get out into a park. Or as one of the bird watchers I interviewed, he was 35. He started from his kitchen when he was in his mid-20s, because he had such a debilitating form of MS that he simply watched birds from his kitchen, and then birds started to bring him outside step by step. And so he adapted and figured out. And when I went bird watching for the first time and it was with Virginia and the Birdability crew, Eric was there in his wheelchair, wheeling the 6 miles that we did that day.
Oh, that's so encouraging. I hope everybody is listening to that and realizing if they can go bird watching, we can all at least go bird watching.
Or at least not even just walking or not walking. Go outside. If your limitation, if you're in pain, like a rheumatoid arthritis, just even getting outside. One of the things that really surprised me was just how medicinal the outdoors is. So it is the best pharmacy, because they have there's chemicals from the trees that improve our immune system. There's the song of birdsong that does so well for our blood pressure and our sense of well-being. There's the fact that a lot of the simple shapes in nature that we're constantly absorbing is so much calming for our brain, because this kind of blew my mind. It matches the retinal structure of our eyes. So there's an ease in processing, as opposed to when you're in a urban environment with all the noise and the hard architecture, and we're sort of on high alert in ways we don't really know all the time, which gives us a low level anxiety, a low level fight or flight. So if we can just get outside into as quiet a space as possible, a quiet as green space. And I realize that's not possible for everybody. It might just be that you can go sit under a tree in your urban environment, but even that is better. Even that is good for you.
That's wonderful. I didn't know that about the shapes with the retinal of the eye. That's incredible. Tell us about your book about tibia and the adventures and how that turned out, because that was it was a best-selling book.
Yeah, that was one of my earlier books. I was at actually a low point. This is one reason why Tough Broad really resonates with me, actually, is because I happen to be in one of the best physical shapes of my life, because I was so injured during my 40s, late 30s, all through my 40s. I had been a firefighter in San Francisco, and I just endured a lot of surgery. So I was on crutches a lot. So people who say, oh, as you get older, you're inevitably going to start declining. I was like, oh no, sorry. I declined in my 40s. Now I'm good. So Lost Cat is simply about a very bad accident that I had, where I had to kind of be couch-bound for months and months and months, and my cat disappeared. And it's really a fable. It's not really about a lost cat. It's really about a lost human. And it seems to resonate a lot with people. I've gotten a lot over the years, letters from people who are facing their own sort of disorienting time in the hospital, loss of a loved one, and people give them Lost Cat, and it's regenerative for them.
Do you think that outdoor adventure, however we find out or however somebody can do it, is a good antidote to grief?
I do. I have a chapter on that, actually. I went sea kayaking with Ilona Aguayo, who had lost her husband only 7 months before. And she was trying to find her own identity after having the identity of being a partner to someone she adored for so many years and who is now gone. And she was going outside and hiking and sea kayaking in order to just simply feel better. But in that chapter, I talk about all the small things she had to do to get outside without her partner there, and how it was almost those small steps that were bringing her back to life. It's not that she was not grief-stricken and not sad. It's that she was so for instance, she used to kayak with her husband, and I went sea kayaking with her for the book, and I used her husband's kayak. And she told me, like, she's a pretty small woman, so her husband used to transport the kayaks to and from the house. But now, without him, she had to learn how could she still kayak without him there to transport those kayaks? So she used YouTube, and she taught herself how to build a little kayak rack right there at the marina, and she rented a little slip. And she got her kayaks there. So now she could do it all on her own. And that's a tiny, tiny example of how just the way getting outside can bring you back to yourself. I saw it. It was quite moving, actually. She was also a big hiker, and she wanted to get out of the house after being, first of all, taking care of her husband there for so long during the pandemic, and also just to get back to herself. And they had an RV. So she had to teach herself not just to drive it, but to work it and dump all the sewage, all the stuff he used to do, so that she could go to these trails. And again, that sounds small, but just that process of learning how to do it on her own was starting to bring her back. I don't know if I could say from grief, but maybe she was living with grief.
Yeah, as you talk about that, Carolyn, I think women I know who have lost their longtime partner, and it is a very gradual process of relearning your own capabilities. And I think that just the way you described that, that getting outdoors is maybe a shortcut to that. I mean, not that it still doesn't take a while, but there are more things that one needs to be able to do for oneself when you're outside, generally speaking. I learned that when I first started backpacking, that you got to do it yourself. I mean, if you really have problems, somebody will help you, but generally speaking, it's up to you.
And I was using her husband's kayak, and I asked her, does this make you sad that we're kayaking and I'm in his kayak? And she said, no, I always think of him. So it's not like this is triggering a memory. So this is actually just a way for me to start to heal. I found that the whole process very moving. The outdoors demands of us these things where we have to dig deep into ourselves, and it offers focus and like presence. When I noticed over and over again that the women that I went on adventures with, and I went on their adventures with them at just as part of the interview, noticed over and over again that it really grounded us both in the very moment. And again, here's the thing, the powerful thing about outdoors is, given those 5 pillars of fulfilling aging, again, health, novelty, purpose, community, and a positive attitude about our own aging, outdoor activity is the only thing beyond a book club, beyond learning a language, beyond going to the gym, that covers all those 5 pillars, all of them: health, purpose, community, a positive view of your own. It covers it all. And I couldn't think of another thing. So that's why it's so powerful in such a small way, and also such a gratifying way. You're not there to punish yourself and be like, I have to have fulfilling aging. It's a fun way. You're actually living your life by going outside. So I found it I started this book with a kind of a sense that outdoor adventure was key for me. And I came away understanding that the science is clear, the psychology is clear, going outside is really important for everybody, but you pick your own adventure. So this is one thing I learned. Yes, I was somebody who really was thought that an adventure was, you had to have high adrenaline, it had to almost kill you. But I came away understanding that. So for instance, bird watching, I didn't think that was going to be an adventure, but it was going to get people outside. And by then I'd already understood the science of how incredible it was to be outside for own well-being and physiology. So I was like, get them outside. Let's go talk to Virginia and let's go bird watching. I'm going to be bored, but whatever. And guess what? Bird watching is an adventure. It had all the rhythms of an adventure. It had the quest for the bird. It had the anticipation. It had the exhilaration. Whoa, there's the bird. I mean, bird watchers can be excited about the same brown bird over and over again. Very inspiring. And it had the physical vitality because they were simply outside. Just being outside gives you physical vitality. But also we were on a bird-a-thon, which happened to be a 6-mile, like I said, they wheeled, I walked. So there's many different birding ways to bird, but one of them is to get a very good cardiovascular workout. So even something like birding had all the hallmarks of an adventure.
Having done just a tiny little bit of birding, I would suggest to everybody, if you haven't done it before, try to find a group who knows what they're doing. Otherwise, it will be very, very frustrating to try to find birds.
Oh, I think
people who know what they're looking for see birds everywhere. If you don't know what you're looking for, you won't see any birds.
Well, I think also it's good just to go maybe with 1 or 2 bird watching enthusiasts, just get caught up in their enthusiasm. I still can't name any of the birds, but I have become a bird watcher every time I go outside. And one of the bird watchers told me this: once you start watching birds, a switch is flipped on and it will never be flipped off. And that is true. I go outside and immediately I start hearing birds. I don't know who it is. I don't know what bird it is, but I don't care. I'm entranced.
That had happened to me with cloud watching. I started with the Cloud Society, and because I thought, oh, what a hoot. But now I'm really into clouds. I never even looked up before to see a cloud. Okay, Caroline, so just before we end, what's next? What is next? What's the next thing you're dreaming about?
Oh, I'm dreaming about learning to navigate a sailboat by the stars. I'm actually not going to learn sailing. A friend of mine's learning sailing. I don't really want to. I can just hang out and be the first mate and eat sandwiches. That's my version of a first mate. But I do want to learn how to navigate by the stars. So that's kind of my goal.
Oh, that's wonderful. What fun. Okay, well, Caroline, I can imagine after listening to you, people are going to want to know more about you. And how can they do that? What's the best way for them to find out about you?
Well, I have a website, carolinepaul.com. Also, I'm on Instagram mostly at Caroline M as in Michael, B as in Bravo, Paul. Yeah, that's it. At Caroline MB Paul. And I think I have some upcoming events that are on my website. If you're in the Bay Area, I think they're mostly in the Bay Area of San Francisco.
Oh, can you have it top of mind? Just one of them you can tell us in case anybody.
I'm at the Lafayette Library on October 8th, I think. And then I'm doing an event for Litquake. Litquake is coming to San Francisco. It's a wonderful literary festival that everyone should look into because there's incredible authors from all around over the world that come here and do panels and talks. And I'm interviewing, well, hopefully I'm interviewing Amy Goopser, who's the 55-year-old swimmer who did the toughest swim in the world ever. Nobody's done it. She did it. She's our people. And I'm interviewing her at Cleo's in Oakland on October 24th about the tough, broad themes that, sort of embody her swim.
Right. Fantastic. Well, thank you, Caroline.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much.
That's our time today. Please join us again. You can find our Prime Spark podcast on every popular outlet. Find out more about Prime Spark at primesparkwomen.com. Thank you so much to my guest, Caroline Paul. And don't forget, you can find her at her website, on Instagram, and several places in the San Francisco Bay Area if you happen to be out here. So thank you for being with us. Take care, spread tolerance and love. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to stay updated, you can head over to my website, primesparkwomen.com, and get my free Spark Guide, 7 questions to ignite your spark, to help you discover your own spark. See you in the next episode.